All right, I think I have some time tonight to show some more artifacts, to do some more artifact peeping. And one thing I want to go back to are these here. My friend Dusty, the one that's loaned these to me, mentioned that these are Wilson points. I think these are the ones that he called Wilson, or ones I could not identify. I've never seen bases or stems like this. I've never seen stems quite like that, so maybe these are Wilson points. Now I looked up Wilson points and they're supposed to be ground. The stems are supposed to be ground on all the edges, but they don't seem to be ground. Maybe the base, but the sides of the stem seem just regular old flaking. No heavy grinding or any kind of grinding. Maybe there's a little bit on the base. But anyway, if these are Wilson points, named after the Wilson Leonard site, right? These are contemporary with Clovis, so very old, in like 9000 BC. There is some grinding here. I can feel it. Some dulling. I don't know which ones are Wilson. Maybe they're all Wilson points. But that would be very interesting if these were that old. 9000 BC is like 11,000 BP, before present. That would be amazing. And they don't feel any older or look any older as far as the general look of them from the other ones, like the Nolans or whatever. The Nolans are not that old, of course. Same issues with knapping. You know, I see no other. I don't see any difference in the technology for knapping these. They just look different as far as the shape of the stem, not the flaking itself. You know, sometimes lots of evidence of pressure flaking, sometimes not very much evidence. Okay, so that would be interesting if those are Wilson points. So I'll try to make a clarification or correction if I need to later on, if that's not the case. I'm sure Dusty will correct me on that, put me in the right direction, point me in the right direction. Let's see, this one's by itself, Big Sandy. Now these are all from the same site, just keep it in mind. Many different point types from the same site. So this one's called a Big Sandy. It's got some interesting flaking on it. It looks like it's been reworked and was originally larger. Why do I say that? Because of this protruding little barb. It was probably, you know, at least 1/8 of an inch wider. So I don't think Big Sandys have that little barb sticking out, but I could be wrong. But yeah, that is what I consider evidence of pressure flaking for sure. It's very difficult to do that with percussion. Calcium deposits, broken ear on the other side. Otherwise it's a little bit of a tip ding, but otherwise it's intact. I can't really tell what's going on with the base here, if it has damage or if that's an intentional notch. Okay. And I don't know if it's heat treated. Can't tell really. Okay, someone wants to be in the video again. Mr. Fuzzy. I got it zoomed in. Hold on. Okay, there we go. He just wants to be in all the videos. No. I just got done cooking dinner, so I got like the food smell on my hands. I already gave you some food. And it's muddy out, so look, you get mud all over you. I think. Is that what I saw? Is that what I saw, buddy? Yeah. All right. Well, I can't be distracted right now, buddy. Okay. Thank you. All right, let's see if I can find a bag that's easy to access. Let me see. These are all bagged up separately. Oh, we got some flaking, like some flaking that makes it look like a pandale. Anyway, I'm gonna skip these for now. I'm coming back to this. I'm gonna come back to this when I can unbag this ahead of time. I just come out here and sit down before Kevin wanders in. I try to beat him into the shop so that I can sit down in peace, but then he comes in and wants to be part of the production. Okay. No bevels, concave base. Oh yeah, early triangulars looks like. Okay, so these are interesting because these are old points also. These early triangulars. Let's see. Well, let's see if we can get a date. I forgot how old these things are. And at the rate I'm going, it's going to be several videos. Okay, period. Overall 5800 to 5700 before present. Which means, 3800 to 3700 BC. Various dates and various sites, but there's a wide distribution. Usually characterized by careful parallel oblique flaking, straight to slightly concave bases, and alternately beveled lateral edges, which also may be slightly serrated. And there's other things. If you want to take a screenshot of this, go ahead, so I don't have to read it all. Okay. All right. Now, just to give you an example of the difference between these books, right? On describing points. Let's look to see how Noel Justice describes his. Just to give you an example, it gives you an introduction. Let's say it's a Quartaro cluster, right? He gives age and cultural affiliation. And then he gives you numbered examples, full scale, and with a description of what the material is, where it was found, in other notes on each specific one, right? And then he goes into distribution with a map, with the sites on the map, and then any other notes after that. Okay, this is distribution, so he ends with distribution on that. Some of these will end with morphological correlates. Okay, you can see the difference between this approach to documenting points and this approach, where there is no individual calling out of these points. There's just a general overall description, I don't know what they call that, just a geometric shape plopped onto the map of Texas, and some dates. Okay, very big difference in the quality of presentation and information. In the Noel Justice books, there's also some Flintknapping experimental archaeology information in it. It discusses some techniques that are known to be used on some of these points. Okay, and what's funny is, ironically, Noel Justice books are out of print, but the Big Red book still going strong. So try to figure that one out. I don't know. I can't figure that out. The book with the best information is out of print. The books seem to be, the best books seem to be hard to get. Constant struggle. All right, so let me look at these. These are supposedly early triangulars, very old points. Let me zoom in. These edges are different from other artifacts, and you'll see as I go into these, hopefully you'll see, because I've already looked at some of these early triangulars. The edges can be extremely thin, and they're sharpened in a very distinct way, I think. Yeah, there's serrations and there's pressure flaking, evidence of pressure flaking, but somehow they're able to get these edges thin, very thin in some cases, and extremely sharp. Okay, and these were just hafted with glue, it looks like. You know, you can wrap sinew around the blade and crisscross, but they look like they were just glued on. And for the most part, the ones that have impact damage were projectile points, but there's still a discussion whether these were intended as knives to begin with, and then repurposed, or some are knives, some are projectile points, or they're all projectile points, or they're all knives. There's discussions on that, ongoing, so no one knows. Dull on this side, sharp on this side. The base is so-so, average, not sharp, not dull. Heat pop after the fact. Most of this stuff is heat popped after the fact when there's a little pop out like that. What do they call those? There's a name for this. I just saw it. I was on Facebook and I just saw it. I was looking at heat treating on Facebook. Yeah, and you can search for that term, find a bunch of stuff on heat treating and opinions and discussions. Pot lid. It's called a pot lid. Anyway, you can see again. Let me see if I can show you. If you can't really see it, the edge is thin, and it feels thin. Now, a lot of it is worn. It looks like it's been worn down. But as I go through here, I think I'll be able to find some of these with very thin edges. Most of them are about average. Let me see. Let me get you some little persnickety data on here. Let me see. The width, the maximum width is like 36 by 5, or let's just say 5 millimeters. Yeah, that's 7-to-1. Right, that's pretty good. Okay. Good material, right? Nice material. I wish I had a bunch of this kind of stuff, but you can see they still had issues with step fractures. Even on the good material. Edges are thin, and these are not beveled like it was explained on the front here, right? No bevs, no bevels. Pressure work. It appears to be pressured or finely done with percussion, with fine indirect percussion tools. Always possible, but it looks like pressure to me. That's the easiest way to do this type of flicking. So you, what law is that? There's a law that says the easier explanation is usually the best one and the most correct. Occam's razor. The most simple explanation is usually the correct one. You know, you can't add too much to the explanation and expect to be correct. You know what I mean? The more you add to the explanation, the less chance it is on being completely correct. All right, so very interesting. A variety of cherts. A large variety of cherts. And again, we have nice thin edges. Looks to me like it was done quickly, or a lot of these were produced at the same time. We do have very similar colors, but these are different materials. All right, these two are similar in material, feel, and look. Yeah, these two are very similar. And there's another pot lid right there after the fact. So let me think here. It's broken. There's a pot lid. So that snap can occur with heat damage and not impact damage. This crack here. So it may have been may have been broken, but not by impact, but by heat. Broken by heat. And you can see the thinness of the stem, of the base. If I can get it to focus. See how thin. A lot of these bases are thinned down. That one's not too bad. Not too much thinning on that one. This one's kind of thin. Here we go. This one's thin. And why do I focus on that? Because thinning is the hardest thing to do in flint knapping, right? So if you're thinning a lot, you've got some skill going on here. Early triangular is an old point. So they got some skill going on early in the process. Now, did they bring flint knapping over from the old world into the new world? Of course. They don't bring their skill, though, unless it's the same person coming from the old world into the new world. The skill has to be developed in each place you go. Each generation must carry the torch and develop their skills separately. But it has to come from somewhere. Sometimes it's handed down directly, sometimes indirectly. Sometimes a culture will lose the flint knapping ability and then go back to it later after either seeing other people's artifacts and then try to copy it without any help, or some flint knappers from another culture come in and say, hey, you guys need to do some flint knapping, I'll show you how to do it, and then they go from there. Well, or some other method, but the point of that discussion is it a continuous tradition from start to finish? No, it's broken up. I think it's lost and regained and then shared and maybe even withdrawn from the culture because they want to focus on bone tools or something, that sort of thing, and then reintroduced later on. All sorts of possibilities and all sorts of different ways to carry on the tradition of flint knapping. All right, so this is kind of wonky. Now, what can we learn from a blade like this? Well, it looks like a percussion biface, obviously, right? And they just kind of went with the flow. And is this finished? I would say no. I would say this is, let's see where in the production this would be. Where would I classify it? In this diagram here, or in this discussion here, where would I classify this particular piece? Well, let's see. Not here necessarily, because this can contain cortex. And this 60% worked is just worked or flaked on the surface. 60% of the surface is worked. Cortex possible. Golly. At this stage. And there's no cortex that I can see on this one. And what the archaeologists call that is cortical. A cortical biface or spall or flake. Okay, in this case it'll be a biface. Now, some guys are going, wait, you forgot uniface. Why didn't you include uniface in this discussion? Well, because I entitled it bifaces. Right? But yeah, I didn't go over uniface. A uniface is this here, where one side is clean. The other side can have cortex, or flaking, or both, or no cortex, lots of flaking. But the point is, this is what's called a ventral. We're getting into big words now. The ventral side is not touched on a lot of these. You strike off. Where is it? Strike off one of these spalls. Nice, clean, shiny face here. This is the ventral side. And if I nap only the dorsal side, that's called a uniface. If I don't touch this side over here. Or it could be the other way around. I could just touch the other side with flakes and not this dorsal side. But that's rare. Usually nappers like the smooth face, so they leave it. And the way I remember dorsal is because of the dorsal fins on fish. And that sort of thing. I can remember that. It's on the back. The dorsal fin is on the back of the fish, so this looks like it could be the back of the fish. Easy to remember that way. All right. So where would I classify it? I would classify this as a blank, right? On its way to one of these items. I would classify it up here in this area. It is not developed enough, I don't think, to be a tool necessarily, right? It could be. So it could be this right here. They could branch out and be this here, and then stop right there. And they could have been using this as a skinner or something, or it could be on this trajectory down into this area. So I would classify it here as a blank with the beginning of its trajectory, or just stopped here after they refined it to their satisfaction, right? To a certain extent. Okay, so I hope that was as clear as mud. Interesting little wonky piece. All right, let's see. Oh, we got some individually wrapped little goodies. Okay, well, another little biface. Nice. So I would classify that also in this category down here, approaching this down here, where it's thin. Now, let's get some particulars, get some persnickety little details. 60 millimeters by 10 or thereabouts. 6-to-1. 6-to-1 is easy with just percussion. So these things are sometimes called percussion blanks, right? Trade blanks. Sometimes they're called percussion blanks. But that's kind of redundant because these are all made with percussion. Unless there's an exception I haven't considered, where the little arrowhead preforms like this that are pressured. What is the blank for this? What is it, a pressure blank or a percussion blank? It's probably a pressure blank. So for bird points, percussion blank might not be appropriate, but you never know. I use percussion, indirect percussion for mine, so I would call my little bird point blanks percussion blanks. Anyway, this one looks like a percussion blank, and there's a little bit of a oops right there. So they go, instead of flint-napping the rest of the way, let's just keep it like this and use it maybe for skinning or scraping meat, cutting up meat. It feels really good in the hand, so you can slice meat up for drying. Now you don't need rock to slice meat. You can use bone. What I've found stone is good for is slicing through sinews. Bone doesn't slice through sinew very well. And when you have lean meats, and especially when you want to remove as much meat as possible from the bone, you're going to slice through sinews, or sinews. Stone cuts through sinews extremely easily, whereas bone or what other material, or a ground slate knife doesn't slice through sinews nearly as easily. So this could be used for processing meat, cutting through sinews, removing tendons and sinews from the leg bones, maybe even to process carcasses, either scavenged or after the main meat has been removed from the carcass. There's still a bunch of meat left on the carcass. You can go through and take a lot more off with something like this, and get the rest of all the little pieces of meat off. And then you crack the bones for the marrow, scrape the marrow out, and all that kind of stuff. You can leave a carcass pretty well cleaned in a few hours with just the bones that you're not going to use for tools sitting there. Okay. In many instances, the carcasses are completely utilized. But, sometimes some of the bones are not advantageous to be used. Okay. Let's see here. I don't know. I'm gonna save those. What do we got here? I need to keep these bags together. Yeah, make sure I don't separate these bags. 162 pieces from Dusty. I was hoping to find some really thin, really triangular that I could show you. I got sidetracked. Uniface Bevs. Ooh, nice. Ooh, nice thinning flake on base too. Very nice. All right, well, we won't get into this nice stuff until the next segment, it looks like. All righty.